Yo, can you hear me? Let's go. Everybody doing all right? I'm gonna turn you guys on to something real quick because I went old school with this. A lot of y'all don't know this, but my generation is a generation like before the internet, leading into the internet to what y'all guys have now. So when I first started going to church, it was like just a bunch of papers that they used, right? And now it's iPads. I brought the laptop. I got a whole PowerPoint slide. I'm not gonna show it to you guys, but I bought a whole PowerPoint slide to get ready and go tonight. So we're starting a new series tonight called Not Okay, right? As Pastor Ryan said. And I'm gonna jump right in. I'm not gonna build it up. I'm not gonna do anything like that. I'm just gonna get right to it. We're gonna get a little hard probably at some times, right? But we're gonna be raw, we're gonna be open, right? And hopefully you leave here tonight and you can take something with you. So in the series, we're gonna see how God is with us in our moments of stress and anxieties, fears, depressions, confusions, things like that, right? And we're gonna see how when we draw close to his presence, that he can help us when we feel overwhelmed. So I'm gonna give you a warning. We're gonna get kind of tough. There might be some moments where it's a little tough. Just be prepared, right? I encourage you all just to lean in, right? Lean in, really kind of take it for what it is. And hopefully you guys will get something. Cool? We good? Now it's quiet. Now we're nervous. That's good though, because the goal for this month is to help you know where to find some hope when you feel like you're not okay, right? So where are we gonna start? We're gonna start with stress. Some of y'all are stressed that I said stressed, right? Some of y'all are like, oh no, where are we going with this? Now I'm stressing out. My wife's stressing out right now. She's like, stress? Oh no, we're gonna talk about it. When we feel stressed, it triggers a response, right? It triggers a response in our body. Oftentimes it's out of our control. And normally what we try to do is we try to spend all of our energy trying to fix what is stressing us out. But if we want to recognize stress when it happens and how God meets us in the middle, we must first understand what stress is. So I got an experiment for you guys. Y'all ready? You ready? All right, I got a little poll for you real quick. Give me my first one up here. Maybe. There it is. What is the scariest? Spider, clown, snake, or looking down from the top of a tall building? 4, spider, 2, snake. Yeah. All right, we're all over the place. Give me my next one real quick. What would be the grossest thing to touch? Uncooked chicken? Jello, chewing gum.
Wait, is the chewing gum chewed?
Warm yogurt. Yeah, it's chewed. No, the chewing gum's chewed. 3 for sure.
It's 3 or
4. Warm yogurt. Could you imagine just like warm yogurt? Right? Yeah. All right, give me my next one. Which is not okay? Touching wet food in the sink, peeling an orange and not being able to wash your hands afterwards. Ugh. Or cleaning the seeds out of a pumpkin. Drinking orange juice after brushing your teeth. It's one. It's one for y'all because y'all ain't never had to like manually wash y'all just got to put them in the dishwasher. Is that what it is? Big country knows. All right, give me my next one. Which is not okay to eat whole? A watermelon, seeds and rind. A banana. Strawberries with their leaves. Broccoli including the stem. I mean, I just steam the broccoli all together and eat it, right? Yeah. You don't eat bananas? All right. You can take them down. Right, so the idea for that, right? The idea for the poll was to show you guys that like, we all can stress about some things, right? And to show you that you're not alone in different things, right? I said we were gonna talk about stress. Some of y'all stressed. Some of y'all like, oh no. I tell you, we're gonna take a poll. We're gonna take a quiz. Oh man. Ooh, I don't know about that. That's tough, right? And most of the questions that were asked, they make you have some type of physical response, right? Like some of them can be funny, right? Some of them make you a little grossed out, right? Maybe gag a little bit, talk about, just imagine all the food in the sink. especially when you have siblings that don't clean off their plate. They just dump it. Is it Cole? Cole Reed? Just imagine, and then you just got to get in there and you just got to, yeah, right? But the thing with it is at some level, something at least about the questions is unsettling, right? Like something makes you feel a little uneasy or a little uncomfortable. Like you ever walked into class, like ready for a test, right? It's been a minute for me. But did you say right? Because it's been a minute? God. So, but like you study for the test, or maybe you didn't study for the test. Like maybe it's a big one, right? But your heart starts racing, right? Like you feel it inside of you. That feeling that's a stress response that we all have designed, and it's there to protect us, right? So when I was praying through this message and I was looking at kind of the series as a whole and everything, and really just talking to God and trying to figure out where we wanted to go tonight, I thought about stress and I thought about my stress and the stresses that I deal with. And I'm gonna be honest with you, my stress is drastically different than a lot of y'all's. I'm 36. I got a beautiful wife. I got 2 kids. Like my stress, so like my stresses are a little bit different, right? So I could sit up here and I could tell you guys about the stresses that I'm going through, and I'll hit on it a little bit. Or I could tell you about times when I was a teenager and I was going through different stressful moments and stuff like that. But like when I was a teenager, we're talking like 01 to 06.
That's when I was born.
Yeah, right. And those stresses they're drastically different than what you guys have, right? For the most part, they're drastically different. So in praying through everything, God just really put it on my heart that maybe you don't need to hear from me and my stresses as much as your peers. Maybe you'll get a true understanding of kind of you're not alone in what you're going through if you hear from somebody else. So I asked Madeline Fowler to come up for a moment, speak to us for just a second. I'm gonna bring you a chair. Hold on. We're gonna do this we did a pull up the chair series one time. It was awesome. I can't come up with that. I'm gonna give Madeline a chair. Thank you, Pastor Ryan. No, you're gonna sit. You're gonna sit. We're gonna put you right front center stage. So I asked Madeline to come up and just share a little bit about maybe a time that she remembers not being okay overall. Do you have something?
Yeah, so when Justin I met with him and he asked me if I would be okay with this, and I was like, sure. I was kind of telling the truth, kind of wasn't, because, telling people about your problems is not always the best thing, the most fun thing, but I really felt like it would be important to tell people that, you're not alone in your struggles. But so I asked God, I was like, what is something I could talk about? And I feel like the main thing was, like, my parents got divorced when I was younger, and that was like the main thing. Like, that was the main thing I was labeled with as a kid was, I was a child of divorce. Okay, like I can joke about it now, but there's a lot of us I know that may have parents that argue, or they are divorced, or we just come from a broken home, and that was kind of like the root of all my struggles. But to kind of get off that deep note, it caused a lot more struggles. Like, I was very just confused about who I was. I honestly just really hated myself. I was like, God, why did you make me the way I am? I feel like I'm only here to take care of other people. I'm only here to please others, that I don't have a purpose outside of that. Because as the oldest kid in my family, when my parents got divorced, I kind of had to take care of everyone. And so I didn't see myself for who God said I was. I didn't see myself as someone who was worth more than just taking care of other people, that I wasn't essentially Jesus. I didn't have to fix people. I didn't have to take care of people every day, every second of the day, that I was worth being taken care of by a Heavenly Father. So yeah. I think it was just, like I said, the main thing was I was just super confused, and I didn't like myself the way God would have wanted me to.
Yeah. What did that feel like to you, like inside? Like, how did that feel dealing with everything that you were going through?
So, like, honestly, I would just say that it felt like I was almost chained to something. Like, you'll hear, like, even like worship songs, like chains will break and all that stuff. But like, truly, it felt like I was chained to these labels and these identities that everyone else put on my life rather than God. I just felt like it was something I was tugging along. Like, it wasn't even necessarily like people will say it was a weight on my shoulders. It wasn't even something that was on my shoulders. It was something I chose to drag along, like something I could have given up, but right. I just kept dragging it with me. Yeah. So,
what were your prayers like during that time, or afterwards, leading into it?
I would say like different like phases of my journey with God. My prayers look different, obviously. But I think when I kind of realized there was a problem, like this is not how God would want me to live my life, I was just kind of praying to God. First off, I didn't know what to do because it's the only way I ever knew how to live. Right. I didn't know how to live in freedom with Jesus. So I honestly just prayed to God. I told him straight up, I was like, God, I don't know what I'm doing. I know you love me. I know I should accept your love, but I don't know how to do that. So God, can you teach me and reveal to me how to do that?
Yeah. Were your prayers consistent at that time? Like, were you continuously praying for it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I just, to find growth, you can't just sometimes do something and then sometimes not.
Yeah.
I had to keep reaching for it. I had to continuously cry out to God, God, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know it's in your hands. I had to, not even just to continuously give it up to him, but honestly, even praying that same continuous prayer was a reminder for me that it's not in my hands, it's in his hands.
Yeah, so. That's so good. That's so good. Give it up for Madeline real quick. Thank you. Thank you. There's a mute button on this somewhere, I think. I'm just going to, the red button? Look at that. Locked, I think. We're just going to, let's do that. Cool. All right. Thank you, Madeline. Thank you. So I felt like you should hear from one of your peers, right? My stresses right now, like I said, are different. And I'm going through a stressful situation right now. Like, I quit my job right before camp. I told you guys, I got a wife, I got 2 kids. I'm the only source of income in my house. And I quit my job because something just didn't feel right? Like the stresses of my job were weighing so heavy on me that it ultimately led me to seek God and seek his presence and seek being closer to him. And I knew that something wasn't okay when the passion to get up and go every day had left me, right? Like, think about like video games, right? Like, anybody playing video games? Okay, or sports or hobbies, like certain hobbies that you have, right? Like, and I'll use the video game reference. Like, you get a new video game, that's all you do. You're playing it day after day, day after day, day after day. And then slowly but surely, you skip a day. Then you skip 2 days. And that passion to play that has slowly started to fade away. And that's what that was like for me, right? Like, I didn't want to get out of bed, not to not do anything for the day. I didn't want to get out of bed and go, is what I didn't want to do. And my prayers were like, God, help me find joy if there's joy to be found. And if not, make it so clear to me that I can't not see it. But in everything that I do, I'm going to trust you through everything. So maybe your stress has something to do with something completely different, right? Like, maybe your stresses is something to do with your family. Maybe it has to do with someone that you know. Maybe somebody's sick that you know. Maybe those are your stresses. Or maybe, Pastor Ryan said it right there at In Worship. Maybe your stress has to do with the fact that you had this life-altering moment at camp with God. And you had that life-altering moment, and now you've come back from camp and you realize you're back in the real world. You're back where you were, right? You're not surrounded by these people. You're not surrounded by the presence of God at all times in your homes or with your friend groups. And it's stressful because something happened, right? And you want to keep it. Or maybe what happened with you, between you and the Holy Spirit at camp, has you stressed about going back to school, right? Like, what does that look like? What's it going to look like when I walk back into school? How are they going to treat me? Right? Am I going to be treated different by the people that know me because I'm living my life for God? Is that like, what's that going to look like? How's that going to feel? What are people going to say? How will I be treated? Will anyone actually believe me? Right? Like, maybe those are your stresses. Or maybe your stress is because now you've come back from camp, you're on fire for God. You want to use your campus as the mission field, but you don't know how to do it. Or maybe there's not too much going on right now. Maybe you feel pretty good about it. Maybe you're not really stressing about anything. But there are some areas that you're holding on to, some situations that you're looking for help. Maybe you're thinking, where does God fit in when we have our stress levels are to the roof and we feel overwhelmed? Or where is Jesus when I'm not okay? So let's go to Scripture. Let's figure out what Scripture says about it, and let's look at somebody who was dealing with a little bit of stress. How about that? So we're going to go to Mark chapter 5. If you got your tree version or your E version. All right, we're going to jump in Mark chapter 5, verses 25. We're going to do 25 through 34, but we're going to go 25 through 29 right now and kind of break them down a little bit. Cool? You with me? Say yeah. Not too many people with me. One more time. You with me? Say yeah. Let's go. All right, it says, a large crowd followed and pressed around him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had, yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately, her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. If you spend any time in church, you've heard the story about the woman with the issue of blood, right? I believe Pastor Jeremy talked about it briefly at camp, right? You've heard that story. So right here in Mark, he's telling us that Jesus has this unique encounter with this woman who's had this issue for 12 years, right? Like, imagine how frustrating and probably humiliating that has to be. You're walking around for 12 years with a condition that nobody can help you. She saw doctor after doctor, spent everything that she had, and yet she didn't get better. She just got worse. And now she's chasing these rumors, right? Because remember, at this time, it's rumors is basically what she's hearing, right? She's hearing these rumors of this so-called miracle worker that's walking around healing people, and she's chasing after him, right? So she struggles for 12 years with this issue. But it's not just a physical issue that she's struggling with. She's struggling with social and emotional pain, right? It's important to remember that, like, at this time in the culture that they lived in, she was an outcast to society. They really didn't have a place for her, right? There were rules on how she was to interact with people, including her family, right? There were places she couldn't go. She wasn't allowed to go certain places. And she could be put to death, like literally put to death, if she touched or just happened to be touched by somebody if she wasn't proven unclean. Like, imagine how stressful that is. Yeah. You're just walking around and somebody bumps into you. How many people get bumped into in a day, right? So just imagine you're walking around and somebody bumps into you. She can be put to death for that at that time, right? So imagine the loneliness and the despair that she's dealing with for all these years, right? She hears about Jesus and how he's healing people, and she goes to him. And just imagine how desperate you have to be that because of the possibility, just literally a possibility, that if you can get close to him, that you could be healed. Like, imagine having to risk your life for that chance, because that's effectively what she's doing, right? And Raven and I just got finished watching The Chosen like a couple weeks ago. And when I was kind of like going through the series, it brought me back to the episode that they have with the woman with the issue of blood. And I thought it was such a really good image of how it could have played out at that time, right? Like, so she's been dealing with this thing for years, and she comes to Capernaum, and she comes to Capernaum purely because she hears that Jesus is there, right? Purely because she hears that he's there. She's thinking, if I can just hear him speak, get in front of him, maybe he can heal me. So she's washing clothes for people. She's trying to make a little bit of money. She's trying to do these things. And she's walking through one day, she falls, and just a random bystander sees her, yells, "Unclean, unclean, unclean, get away, get out of here, get out of here." So she leaves, right? She's upset, she's crying. You know, she leaves and she goes away. And in that time that she goes away, Jesus has come back and he's walking through the streets of Capernaum, right? And it's like it says right here in Mark, the large crowd starts to surround him. So this crowd is like pouring in on top of him. So she runs to him. She runs to where he is, and she gets there and she sees this crowd of people. And she has this moment of like, do I go? Do I not go? Do I or do I not? Society tells me I shouldn't, right? Culture tells me I shouldn't. Religion tells me I shouldn't, because if I touch somebody, I can be put to death. So she's battling in this moment of like, should I go? Should I not go? I don't know. And eventually she goes. She pushes her way through the crowd. She pushes her way. And as she's getting closer to him, the same guy that had saw her before sees her and notices her. Starts yelling again, unclean. She's unclean. Get her out of here. And she lunges. At the very last moment, she lunges. And in the show, she like her hand basically just rubs the prayer tassel that's on his cloak at the bottom, right? Like as she lunges, she just rubs it. And immediately Jesus realizes that power had left his body, right? So despite all the rules that were put in place about where she could go, who she could talk to, how she was supposed to act, she took a risk to come to Jesus because she believed that just by touching him, that she could be healed. So we're going to jump back in. We're going to go to 30 through 34 real quick. It says that once Jesus realized that power had gone out of him, he turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" Do you see the people crowding against you? His disciples answered, and yet you can ask, "Who touched me?" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." In that moment, he took away everything that she had been hoping and praying for, right? Like she realized that she was healed immediately when she touched Jesus and she fell at his feet. Now, normally when we hear that someone fell at the feet of Jesus, we think there's praise, admiration, glory, right? And there was probably some of that, but I guarantee you there was a lot of fear. I guarantee you she was just a little bit scared, a little bit stressed out because she knew that what she had done had broken so many laws, right? So many cultural laws, so many religious laws. She knew that she could be put to death. Like that's a stress level through the roof, right? And Jesus could have called her a sinner, could have called her a lawbreaker, could have done any of those things, but we all know that's not his character. That's not who he is, right? His character is to reach down, pick you up, go in peace, and be freed from your suffering. When Jesus heals the woman, he's reminding her that she is intended to have this connection and closeness with other people. And also this connection and closeness to him and his presence. And we all experience stressful situations, right? But like the woman with the issue of blood, and maybe some of you in here, stress in itself doesn't begin to cover it, right? Like we're not sure how to handle things. We're not sure how to handle the stress or the anxiety or the depression or the confusion, right? We're not sure what's normal and what's not. All we know is we're not okay. So again, I could give you my own personal testimonies and things like that, but I just feel like that in a moment like this, it's so much better to hear from one of your peers. So I asked Isabel Green to come up and just give you a little bit of what she's got. Let me see if I... Oh, shout out, Brett. All right, Isabel, how are you?
Good.
Good. All right, give us a little bit about a time that you remember not feeling okay.
So a time I remember not feeling okay, like at all, was my first year in middle school. I came to school out of being homeschooled for a year. I didn't have any friends, and so I kind of just put myself in a friend group where there was a lot of like identity confusion, like being gay was just normal for them. And so I kind of had a fear that if I wanted friends, I had to be like them. And so I put my life towards that, and I followed the wrong path that the Lord had not laid out for me. It was the complete opposite. I was walking away, and I called myself a lesbian for like that whole year. And
So what did it feel like when you were battling through it, like inside, internally? What does that feel like?
I kind of, even though I said they were my friends, I kind of felt like they weren't, because like they would kind of force it upon me to be like them. and like forcing it upon me to like, if I wasn't like that, then I couldn't be their friends, and then I'd just be lonely for the rest of my life.
Yeah. So you're battling this issue and confusion that's going on at that time. What are your prayers like in that time?
I wasn't really praying at that time, actually. I was just lost, and at the end of the year when I went to camp, I know it's like we just had camp and we were talking about it doesn't have to be at camp, but my story is at camp.
Yeah.
I was saved at camp because I was just thinking in my head, the only person that can save me at this moment in time is the Lord. And if he's really there, he will tell me that he has a different path for me.
So good.
And I went up to the altar call on the last day, and he called me to do missions work.
Yeah.
He called me to spread his word. And he said, I have something planned for you, not this path, but a new one.
And since you've done that, is it like, I asked Madeline the same thing. Is it a one-time prayer, or have you continued praying through it?
I've continued praying through it. I've continued following the path the Lord has paved for me. Because if you fall back apart, you have to like somehow just get back. But as long as you follow the light he has, you're good. Like,
yeah. Thank you, Isabel. Thank you. I love it. That's courageous, both of you, Madeline, Isabel, to just come up and talk and be open and vulnerable to your peers is something to be admired. And I appreciate it. I really do. I know that was a big step, and I generally do appreciate it. So hopefully through this process, like you realize that we all experience emotional, physical pains, right? And when we do, it activates a similar part of our brain where the physical pain is normally experienced, right? Like imagine, has anybody broken their leg? Like the whole leg, not just the ankle, not just the foot. Of course he has.
Hold on, whoa,
Yeah.
what?
You ever seen anybody with that has broken their whole leg?
Yeah, I was in
Yeah.
a wheelchair for 4 months.
Right? They cast you normally from like the hip down,
It sucked.
right? It does. I can't imagine that it sucks. So imagine like somebody with a broken leg. When somebody's walking around with a broken leg, they're walking on a crutch or they're in a wheelchair for an extended period of time, right? And there's no shame in that at all. There's no shame in it. Everybody sees what happened. But when it comes to your mental health, oftentimes it can feel like something's wrong inside of you and nobody around you know. Nobody has a clue what is actually going on inside. Nobody has a clue what you're actually going through. I struggled for years in silence. From the time I was about 13 to my mid-20s, I could put on a smiling face. You could look at me and be like, nothing's wrong in that guy's world. He's good. Nothing's wrong. But I was struggling for a long time. And the truth is, it's normal to struggle. It is. It's normal. And just like a broken leg that somebody has, it needs a certain amount of care. It needs a certain amount of attention. It needs a certain amount of professional help. Our mental health, our stress, our anxieties, depressions, all of those things, they need the same thing. They need care, right? They need those things. They need attention. And sometimes they need professional help. It's true. It is. And your path to support may be simple. It could be as simple as just a prayer. It could be. Could be exercising. Could be journaling. Could be doing any of those things, right? Or like the woman with the issue of blood, you may have to get radical. There's no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to dealing with our mental health battles. There's not. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. But Jesus is our one-size-fits-all approach to finding hope, no matter what we're going through. I'll say it again, Shane, for the people in the back. I will. Jesus can be our one-size-fits-all approach to finding hope, no matter what we're going through. So we're gonna jump back into the New Testament, go a little bit further down, a couple books down. We're gonna go to Romans real quick, and we're gonna look at one passage. It's gonna be, I went past it too far. There it is. We're gonna go to Romans 15:13. And in Romans, the Apostle Paul is writing to the leaders of the early church, right? So he's writing these different letters. And in this, he says, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. Notice, Paul says our hope would increase, right? He didn't say that the God of hope would fix everything immediately, right? He doesn't say that God says he'll change our circumstances when we increase our faith. He didn't say that God steps in and fixes everything when we're at our absolute lowest, when we've hit rock bottom. He simply says that the God of hope will overflow our joy as we learn to trust him. God won't always change your circumstances the way that you want, but Jesus will offer you hope. Jesus provides the hope to sustain us in our times of stress and anxieties, in our times of fears and depressions, right? We can trust God leads us towards healing because, and this is our big idea, I think we got it, put a lot of slides together, because when you're not okay, Jesus offers hope. So however you feel about what's happening in your life right now, just know that Jesus is with you in what you're going through. He's with you through the pain. He's with you through the anxiety. He sees you in your suffering, and he wants you, all he's asking for you is for you to fix your eyes on him. Just fix your eyes on him as you're going through it. And that's what I'm walking through right now. I told you I quit my job. The only source of income for my family. And putting my hope and faith in Jesus changed my perspective about my job. It really did. Having the hope that I had this feeling that this giant weight was on me. And the minute that I let it go, it released off of me, right? And knowing that God is with me every step that I take allows me to work past those feelings. I'm still living in them, but I'm walking through them. Does that make sense? And Jesus hasn't made everything better immediately, but he's given me hope. And there's two scriptures that immediately came to my mind when I was thinking about mental health that you often hear a lot. And I know I'm giving you guys a lot, but there's two of them. The first one is Philippians 4:6. There it is. We got it. Nice. There it is. Now I got to find it in mine. Bow. There it is. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ. Who's heard that one? People that have been walking through some stuff's heard that one before, right? And it's such a good passage. Wait, is it gone? Can you give? There we go. There it is. Go back one more. Go back one more. Because this is where this is just what I want to focus on right here for a minute. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. I love that. I love that. What I wish it said, right? What I wish it said is do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and repetition. Prayer and repetition. What'd you hear from Madeline? What'd you hear from Isabel? Consistent prayer. Consistent prayer as you're walking through it, right? It's consistent. It has to be consistent. When you're walking through something and all he's wanting you to do is fix your eyes on him, all he's asking you to do is be consistent. Be consistent. The second one, the second verse is 1 Peter 5, 6, and 7. Anybody wants one of my cards? I got it right here. Y'all didn't see that. So it says, humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up. What? What was it? In due time. In due time. That doesn't mean your time. Doesn't mean your time. That means his time. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. And then it goes on to say, cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. So, all that being said, and we're all feeling in our emotions right now, and that's good. I like it. I like it. I like getting in them. I'm going to leave you guys with this. I'm going to leave you guys with 4 ways to pursue hope and healing. Okay? Very first one is be honest. You've got to be open and you got to be transparent about what's going on. You got to be realistic about what's happening and what needs to change. Just like the woman with the issue of blood, you've got to be willing to admit that what you've been doing hasn't been working, and you need to look for a new path with God. And the second thing is name your feelings. Name what you're going through, right? Name what you're feeling. There's so many types of emotions, so many types of feelings, thoughts, right? Yeah, you gotta get specific. You gotta name them. You gotta figure out what it is. You gotta name it. And then you've got to do the most important thing. I shouldn't say one of the most important things. The most important thing, you gotta bring everything to Jesus. No matter how hard things can be, Jesus offers hope when we draw close to him. So why not talk to him about it? And the fourth thing is ask for help. Ask for help. Sometimes no matter how much you pray and how much you ask God to fix how you're feeling, truth is sometimes it doesn't change. And I don't have a good answer as to why. Sometimes it's not easy. But it's not your burden to carry alone. Talk to someone. Talk to someone. Get you a community of people that you can talk to. Reach out to your leaders that you can talk to. Talk to someone. If it goes deeper than that, we can help you find some professional help. But talk. Talk about it. What you guys are walking through right now, day-to-day lives at school, it's serious. It's serious. And I'm not going to be one of these old guys. I told you I'm 36. I'm not going to be one that's going to be like, just snap out of it, because you can't. Sometimes you can't. I used to think you could, then I couldn't. And then I walked through it with my wife. She couldn't just snap out of it. You can't. Sometimes you can't. So ask for help.